this was a conscious choice on my behalf, where I thought, I think I'm finding that I'm liking my performances and that they're better the more honest I can have them be, the more closer to the sleeve I can play them, the more of whoever I am as a person I can bring to this character. I think I found that if I really tried to make the character as much like me as possible, that I could really find a more honest performance that would either be funnier or more heartfelt or more interesting.
I'm your host, Scott Savlov, and welcome to another week of The Path here. And with me, my buddy Charlie Day. Charlie Day from Always Sunny and different films that you've seen him on, and a voice of many voiceovers, which is very impressive, by the way.
Thank you. I was talking to a musician yesterday, and he was like, "Hey, man, you should get your voice checked." I go, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, I've been a fan of you for so many years, and I feel like I hear a difference in your voice now. And he's like, this guy's a singer, a guy named Ben Abraham. And he said, I had like all these cysts that they like dug out of my throat. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. My voice is my moneymaker here. I can't mess with it, but we'll see. Maybe I'll start sounding like James Earl Jones soon. Like change it up.
Well, I remember you talking to me about your music and your music background. Now, that came from your parents, right? Your parents were both music teachers.
Yeah, there was always music in my house growing up, although not in the sense of like they were listening to the radio and always, but more like someone was trying to figure out a piece of classical music on the piano and kind of stumbling through it, or my sister was taking lessons on the piano, and I started on the piano and then switched to the trombone. And then in high school, there was like no band at my high school, so I was thankfully able to give up the trombone. Although now I think the trombone is a cool instrument again. But when I was 15, I didn't think it was cool. And that's when I started picking up the guitar and noodling on that. And I'm able to. I have a familiarity with an instrument that I really appreciate having. I know we do that with our son, where I sort of make him take some kind of piano lesson, but we're not like pushing him because it's clearly not his passion. But he has an awareness of just how music works a little bit, and so for me, it's been an essential thing in my life just to have the ability to sit down with an instrument and say, all right, I'm kind of bored. I want to noodle on something. And I think if I didn't have that, I would just have one less outlet in my life for anything, relaxation, self-regulating, whatever you want to call it, creativity. So I think it's something that most people should know if they have any interest. And I also think it's something that it's never too late to learn. I mean, you could go on YouTube and learn how to play the guitar in a day,
Right. For you growing up, you're born in New York but you grew up in Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. Describe your hometown, Middletown.
Yeah, Middletown, Rhode Island is
Middletown, Rhode Island.
It's right next to Newport, Rhode Island, which is a really sort of summer vacation haven in New England, where there's lots of boating and mansions and these families like the Vanderbilts, they built these palatial mansions, like castles really, along the shore, and now they're a bunch of museums mostly, but it's a real kind of New Englandy touristy place. And then in the winter, there's nobody. Everyone clears out, and there's just us local kids. My childhood was pretty fantastic, in my opinion, growing up there. I think I was out the door and on my bike. There was a pack of guys in my neighborhood that I'm still very good friends with, and I get together with them for a golf trip at least once a year. And very kind of working class neighborhood and working class kids and lots of playing baseball and just being outdoors. And I don't know if I think there's pockets of that, but you see less and less of it today where kids are just sort of out and about and free.
Right.
But it was a great place to grow up, and I'm still very fond of it. I don't know if I can handle the winter anymore, but I still feel like I could live in Rhode Island and in Middletown, Rhode Island specifically. I could live there, at least half the year. I don't, and I probably won't, but I could.
Could you tell me if you were a good student in growing up and in high school? Were you a good student, would you say?
No, not at all. I think I was savvy. I think I had good sort of street smarts, and I could convince someone of something. So that's where I think down the line, like writing and creativity worked out well. But when it came to what so much of our educational system is, which is simply memorize and repeat, I was gone. Whether it was math facts or history facts or science facts, they would go in one ear and out the other. I was daydreaming most of the time, and I still probably am. And then by the time I got to high school, I truly hated it. I just barely got into college, and my dad was a college professor, and so they accepted me at Salve Regina University, which was in my town, but I didn't want to go to college in my town. But there was a sister school called Merrimack College, north of Boston, and they sort of took my pulse and said, "Okay, he's in." But once I got there, and once I had the ability to study things I was interested in, I did very well in school. But it wasn't until I really was able to focus on something I cared about that I didn't realize I had any sort of aptitude for intelligence prior to that.
What was your major?
I was an art history major.
Okay.
And only because they didn't have a proper theater program. They had a few theater classes. And I went there first initially hoping to play baseball. And it was a Division II school. And I thought, okay, Division I, I'll never make it. But this school expressed like some interest. And I thought, okay, I could probably pull this off. And very quickly, within the first few days, realized I was in over my head. I was 5'6" 3/4, and I don't know, I weighed like 135 pounds at the time, and I think their starting second baseman was 6'2", 210, and I remember this guy got kind of jammed up on a pitch in the first week of scrimmages, and still managed to hit it out of the park. And I thought, okay, I'm done. It's never going to happen, and I didn't make the team. And I immediately went over to the theater club and said, I'd like to join this. And, it was one of those things that was just very obvious, where I think my whole baseball career growing up, I feel like I had to work 10 times harder than the average player just to be okay.
Now, were you a Red Sox fan or Yankees?
Red Sox. And, but when theater, it just seemed to come more naturally, which is not to say I didn't work at it. It just was, the kind of thing where in baseball, I really had to push to being a starting player on a team versus a play where people kind of said, hey, that's a guy I want out in front, Right. And then I think there's a biological aspect, which is I didn't get any attention from women until I started doing theater. And then I think, that's there's something probably primal that says, oh, right, this is the right path for me to survive and reproduce.
Did you do any theater in high school? I mean,
Yeah, I did one play in high school. I was kind of intimidated by the high school theater thing. It wasn't until I was a senior and comfortable that I thought, okay, I could go do a play. So in high school, I was a little bit more dedicated to sports. But my parents, I think, being music teachers and being in the arts, would take me to plays. And I did some in grade school, one in third grade or second grade, and then again in fourth grade. And then, I guess I didn't do until I was a senior in high school. But then the second I started doing them in college, I was just hooked. That was it.
Was there any of those professors or teachers in theater that kind of inspired you or kind of like turned your mind on? Like for me, right, in high school, I really didn't like to read. I mean, I read, obviously, like everyone. But I had a teacher, Mr. Michaud, and this guy was an American Lit, and he was like the foremost authority on Herman Melville, if that's such a thing, and turned me on to reading, and I became passionate about literature. So for me, I know that was the turning point. For you, did this turn you somehow?
Yeah, there was one. So there was one theater teacher at my college, and his name was Robert Heinlein, the same name as that science fiction writer. And he was a great big tall guy, and he would like smoke the cigarettes with the little like plastic like holder thing. He was sort of charismatic guy, and he he had this office down like in the basement of the library where there was like a theater and there was a AV room where you could make little movies. And he taught like a movie making class and a few acting classes. And he was someone who, had done some sort of regional professional theater. So for me, I said, I was very inspired by him. I said, this is a man who's a professional in a sense. And he did in many ways take me under his wing. And I think he was excited to have a student that was taking it seriously. I don't know how many students he'd had before that were really dedicated and interested in acting, because it was not an acting school, it was a business school really. And in addition to that, he would give me recommendations for films like Waiting for Guffman, which I'd never seen. And he said, you should watch this sort of independent comedy. And it was, I think it did become my life, which is that Sonny in a sense was very much born from the same sort of do-it-yourself attitude that Christopher Guest and those guys had with their comedic movies, which is to say, no, we don't need a giant budget and a huge scale operation to do something here. We can just kind of lean and mean, make something funny. But also just, he gave me some confidence in acting, but also the language of cinema, like understanding a little bit how the camera worked. And I would make some videos with my college friends, none of whom had any interest in being actors, but I would make these sort of videos, and I could tell that he was genuinely impressed in a way that felt really good, where he thought, wow, this kid has some promise. These like little videos are really pretty interesting. And he would be tough on me too, which was hard. Sometimes I would resent him for that. But, and he and another student there gave me one piece of advice. They said, there's this place called the Williamstown Theater Festival, and it's in Western Massachusetts, and it's a summer theater festival where you can go and intern and, essentially help build sets, maybe take an acting class. And if you're lucky, you get a line walking across the stage, saying, hey buddy, which way to, the museum or what, something like a two line talking part.
A throwaway. And,
right. And I went, and, the summer of my junior year in college, I went up to Williamstown, and it completely changed my life, because there were professional actors there, Broadway actors who made a living performing. There were also famous people from Hollywood who came through just to do like a play for the summer. And, wow. I think I was in a play with Ethan Hawke, Scott Wolf, who was really famous because he was on Party of Five at the time. And it was
Party of Five, and a good golfer.
And a good golfer.
He was at one point.
Is, and a great guy. He was doing a play, and I got to have a little part in it. And I was so nervous every day in rehearsal that they would fire me, because my part was to go, it was called Dead End, and there were like these street kids. And my part was in the like 1930s, I guess. And my part was to go up to Scott Wolf and kind of pick a fight. I was from a different street gang. And it was like 5 lines. And every day in rehearsal, I knew I was bombing. It was me and like 2 kids who weren't even actors. They were like sons of the people who work there. And I could feel the air go out of the room every day. And I had this moment. I had one moment, was taking a shower in the morning and getting ready to go to rehearsal, and I just thought, I gotta go for it. I gotta get right up in Scott's face and have him and everyone think I am about to fight him. And they might think I'm crazy and I'm going to get fired, but I got to go for it. And so, that day in rehearsal, I go right up to Scott. I get like nose to nose to him, and I like say my lines with like fierce intensity. And I see his eyes get that look of like, wait, what the heck is going on here? Like, is this guy unhinged? Like, what is happening? And then, the scene plays, and we it's lunch or intermission. I can't even remember. It's been so long since I did a play. But we're taking a break between scenes, and the director pulls me aside. I go, oh no, here we go. I'm fired. and because this was a huge deal, I'd never been in a professional production before. And he pulls me aside and he goes, have you ever considered doing this for a living? And I said, well, yeah, that's why I'm here. This is what I'm trying to do. And he goes, you should, because you're extremely good, or something to that effect. And he had quoted another famous actor who was there watching the play, who had sort of said, it's like an actor is born. But those series of steps, like from my theater professor telling me to do this and me taking the leap that day in rehearsal. I mean, even getting that part of the play was a leap of faith, where I'd gone up to the director and I had heard they'd cast up almost all the parts, and I just said I'd like an opportunity to just read for any role, and he liked that I had the guts to do that.
From that point, were you pretty much all in on acting? I mean, it was like, I'm going to be an actor.
Yeah. I think that was the moment too that I was like, I can do it. There's a room full of professionals here, and this director is a well-regarded professional, and a few people just gave me a seal of approval, and all it took was just 100% commitment. And I thought, well, I can do that. And I pretty much have ever since, was just throw myself completely into whatever thing that I'm doing, and the return has been nice. Sometimes you don't get the part, or sometimes people don't like the movie, but I haven't looked at any of them and said that it didn't feel committed, or I didn't feel as though I was connected to it.
So you give it your all, no matter
what.
What? I mean, that's your commitment. It's kind of, I get a sense that that's your baseball, meaning you're going to give that energy level, lay it out there, not hold back.
Yeah.
You didn't trust yourself. You're probably a better baseball player than you thought.
It's okay, but
you had some trepidation.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go into acting, you get some acknowledgement. And now you believe in yourself, and game on. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, I think with sports, there are some pure physical limitations, whether it's a coordination thing or just sheer size. Now, you look at guys like Jose Altuve, and they've gone ahead and blown that theory right out of the water. So,
right. Dustin Pedroia from your Red Sox, another guy.
Dustin, who's awesome. And even Jimmy Rollins, who I played golf with a few times, he's not that big.
Not a big dude.
No.
I mean, he's muscular and thick.
Yeah. But there's some real talent.
But he's not
talent to their physical abilities too, I think. But who knows? Yeah, like, but the sort of the doors were opening in a way that just made sense, and it just seemed.
What did you do immediately after college? What was your commitment to yourself then? Did you?
I'll tell you. So after that summer, I went back to my senior year of college, and then I did that, and then I went back. I auditioned to get back into that theater festival. They had sort of rising ranks of sort of actor companies of non-professional actors. And the next level up wasn't an intern anymore. You were in like a sort of theater troupe. And it was very competitive. You were auditioning against kids from Juilliard and Yale School of Drama, and people wanted to get in. And I was fortunate enough to get a slot that next summer, and I went back up there, and was that the summer? Yeah, I did not get an agent yet, because sometimes people would get an agent there, but I just made more connections, knew more actors and kids wanting to do it for a career because no one in my college did. And then right after that summer, I moved down to New York City, and I split a basement apartment with one of my friends from that theater troupe, and had one full year of just grinding, waiting tables, and trying to send your headshot out, and nothing that worked. Just pretty much a dead year in New York City, just living life. But it was also exciting because I was young and in the city and pursuing my dreams. And at times it was a lonely year. I didn't know that many people.
Right.
But at the end of that year, there was another audition for an even higher rank in that theater festival, and I went in and I auditioned again, and I got in again. So after that first year in the city, I went back to Williamstown for a few months in the summer, and it was there doing a play. Actually, a play with Ethan Hawke. That one of the actors' agents came up and saw me in a play and like a little talent showcase thing that we did sort of on the side, and offered to represent me. And after, then it was a whole different ball game. I had an agent for both regular acting roles and commercial work, and I was able to start making a living performing. So I, after that summer, I went back to the city and just started working, whether it was doing an episode of Law and Order or doing a Foot Locker commercial. I did whatever I could get, and had a few good years of starting to get work and really piece it together and pay my bills. No more waiting tables. I just, I could go to an audition and get the part and get the check and see how much money had been taken out, but there was enough to keep paying the bills and just copy and repeat and do it again. And after a few years of that, started to get closer on bigger projects and get close on some big movies, but I hadn't quite gotten over the hump. I was trying to think like what some of the bigger, like I think the most exciting one for me was this role in the movie 8 Mile, which was the Eminem movie.
Right.
But they wound up going a different way with the part, and then I think ultimately almost cutting the role. But
did they give that to Anthony Mackie?
They went with Anthony Mackie instead.
Yeah. Charlie, that urban rapper thing just isn't working right now.
Well, that, they did not go with a white actor. I think they wanted the character to be a white rapper, and then ultimately said, no, I think it's too much with Eminem and this other guy. And so they went diverse with the role. But I think my confidence was growing because I was getting closer and right. Real directors were saying, hey, we like this guy enough to, bring me in a few times. And it was over the course of those few years that I met Mary Elizabeth in the city.
I was going to ask, is that the time period you guys kind of met and started dating?
Yeah. I was 25 and I just turned 25. I think she was 21, almost about to turn 22. And yeah, I was doing a play that a friend wrote, just something for fun downtown. And we had one mutual friend who went to SMU, which is the college she went to. And this guy had been up at the theater festival, so knew a lot of my friends. And he was an aspiring director, and I still work with him. He directs a lot of episodes of Sunny. And so she came to see my play, and we met afterwards, and pretty much clicked immediately. And I've spoken to her every day since. And so, I think we started sort of dating. She lived in Los Angeles at the time, so we started dating long distance, excuse me. And I lived with a guy named Jimmy Simpson, and Jimmy Simpson's another great actor who you'd recognize his face. He's been in a lot of things. And Jimmy was one of these guys that I met with up at Williamstown. And Jimmy had started to move out to New York and sort of be somewhat bi-coastal. He might have been living with a girlfriend out here. And he and another friend of mine were making sort of funny home videos, and they would, I guess they mailed them to me because this was before, not before the internet, but before we all were using the internet.
Right.
And I thought, oh man, I got to get out there. So somewhere along that process, I decided, okay, I've got to go out to California for a little while and be with Mary Elizabeth, and hopefully that works out, and be with my friend Jimmy and my other friends who'd moved out, and make funny videos and do the auditioning thing out there. And over the course of that time, I'd also met a young and talented man named Rob McElhenney. And Rob and I had lots of conversations about making our own things. And I think I was in LA for about a year, and I'd done a television series. I kept getting close on so many. I tested 15 times, I think it was, where they bring me in front of the studio, and then 15 times they were like, no, not this guy. And then finally I gotten one, a show produced by Will Gluck, and there were two really funny writers on that show, a guy named Chris Miller and another guy named Phil Lord, who did like the Lego movies and a million other brilliant things. But
right.
It was a show.
These are talented people.
Yeah, it was
for sure.
A good group. And Luis Guzman was the star of the show. Louis, who was like from Boogie Nights and all sorts of great roles. And we did 13 episodes, and then it got canceled. I think only 3 aired, and it got canceled immediately. And I remember just feeling so frustrated and talking with Rob, and we were saying, it's so annoying to have to fight so hard to get these parts, and then you get the part and you don't feel like you're given the chance to even shine the way you can shine. And we were like, let's just do it ourselves, going back to that Waiting for Guffman style of humor, where it's like you just need a camera and some funny people, and you can make something funny. It doesn't have to take place in outer space or underwater. You can be in apartments and have people having a funny conversation. And we started workshopping an idea that Rob had about a guy who comes over to another guy's house to ask to borrow some sugar, and the guy tells him that he has cancer, and the friend says, oh, that's terrible, and consoles his friend, but he also still wants the sugar. And so the comedy comes out of like, how does he still ask for the sugar? And from that little, from that sketch and that sort of awkward, uncomfortable comedy place that was becoming popular with the British Office and Curb Your Enthusiasm, Rob and Glenn Howerton and myself and David Hornsby and Jimmy Simpson and Mary Elizabeth and our friend Artemis Pevdani and a slew of other people all kind of chipped in, and we made this TV show that ultimately became It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Right.
I was about 27 when we started doing that, and I'm 46 now, and we're still doing it. so that was
well. I was going to say first, when you guys created that, it doesn't sound like you created it. You hear these stories of long term. It sounded like you guys just wanted to create something that you all could shine in, kind of collaborate and have fun, mm-hmm. and do some good work. 15 years later, you're still doing it.
Yeah.
How, other than adding a character that smokes with a little plastic holder, pay a little homage somehow. How do you guys get the ability to lock yourselves in a room and start writing and being creative? Is that trust? Is it just seeing the news and seeing, because there's some political elements of Sunny too.
Sure.
It's subtly worked in. It's not,
I mean,
like in your face, but you kind of navigate it. So what's the process there?
Well, there's a couple different answers to that. I mean, on the one hand, in terms of the process, look, we have the great benefit of we're picked up. There's a schedule, because I find writing without that very difficult. Also writing without collaborating is very difficult, but the great benefit of like, okay, here's a team of people, the 3 of us, and then the writers we hire. And, we have 8 weeks or whatever it is to write 10 episodes. Get in a room and figure something out because you have to do it. So that it's
Right.
helpful to sort of have that gun to your head, figuratively speaking. But, in terms of like the political aspect, yes, the world keeps giving us wildly crazy things that you can't believe are happening that you can write to. So that's always an opportunity. In terms of how we approach the political side of things is, we really tried to skewer all angles. I think for a proper satire, I think taking too strong a stance in one lane really limits your ability to mine what is really humorous about the sort of foibles of being human. So,
Right.
we take any topic and we say, okay, let's skewer what maybe we politically feel like is obvious, but also let's skewer what the other side might think is totally right on their end too. So we do a fair amount of that. We try to not have that be every episode. Some episodes are more character based where we say, well, this one really isn't about a political theme, but is about just something funny that someone might want, and there's something relatable in that. And then, just be open to inspiration wherever it may come from.
Charlie, you had made the quote, as an actor, sometimes you feel pressure to change yourself from time to time. And I asked that because as you explained how you sit in the room and you go through the process for Sunny, you also at the same time take on roles like horrible bosses and different types of movie roles, which is a complete departure from the daily grind of television. But how do you have to change yourself? Now, all of a sudden, scripts come to you.
Yeah.
Versus you having to audition, scripts come to you. How do you then pivot and become Charlie Day film actor, say Horrible Bosses 1, 2. And again, and I'm framing it to say there's collaboration because you're with people that are funny and also people that are wonderful actors, but now it's a different director. And how do you change?
That's a good question. I mean, to some degree, I think I've been accused of, and they wouldn't be wrong, like being very similar in a lot of things that you've seen me in. But this was a conscious choice on my behalf where I thought, I think I'm finding that I'm liking my performances and that they're better the more honest I can have them be, the more closer to the sleeve I can play them, the more of whoever I am as a person I can bring to this character. I think I found that if I really tried to make the character as much like me as possible, that I could really find a more honest performance that would either be funnier or more heartfelt or more interesting. But then, what's interesting is, so I haven't done like the thick accent or, a limp or, a bunch of prosthetics. I haven't done too much of that. But then the downside of that, which I found, is that you do start to get pigeonholed a little bit, where, I'll get sent a lot of scripts and I'll be like, why is everyone constantly sending me this like put upon whiny beta male character? And the answer is because it's a performance that I figured out how to do in a funny way, right? So people are saying, hey, right, you make us laugh when you play a guy like that. Please do it in this story. And to some degree, I'll have to fight against it a little bit, right? Because then you do run the risk of burning the audience out on it. And to some degree, I'll also have to find, well, when is the right story to go back to a persona like that? Where does it fit? It's interesting. Right. I was talking to a guy who was talking to Pesci, who is always at the chorus. And he, had a movie idea and was talking to him about it, and I think the character was a gangster, and Pesci's like, I don't want to play another gangster. Of course, you hear that and you're like, all I want to do is see you play a gangster. Please play another gangster.
You're right.
But there's a balance, and look, he's smart. He didn't he's playing gangsters for Martin Scorsese, one of the best directors who ever, got behind a camera. If he had just done it over and over and over and over again, every opportunity he had, you'd probably burn out on it. So there is a balance.
Right.
In terms of change, I think that has to do more with just the confidence not to limit yourself. And that can apply to anything in life, whether it's certainly with acting, to say, hey, no, I could actually play a character which isn't what I would see myself as. Or no, I could maybe also, direct something or make some music, or let's apply it to golf. I actually could get my handicap from, let's say someone is like a 15 to be like, no, what? You actually could be a 7. You're not picturing it for yourself. You're not taking the steps, or I guess what? Maybe I could learn another language, or how to pick up the guitar and play a few songs. So I think in terms of change, I think it's a professional thing, but it's a life thing in terms of, you don't really have to like change who you are at the core. You just have to open yourself to more opportunities of who or what you could be.
You did I Want You Back, came out earlier this year. Very enjoyable film.
Thank you.
I really liked it.
I love it.
And it seemed like that gave, a little bit different side of you in it's a romantic comedy. And I don't know why the romantic comedies we grew up watching that were either forever in film kind of disappeared for a while. It just, there were some, but they were like different. They were just like, I don't know how to describe it. It just, but
they became
this movie that you made
in a way, they became shinier and going harder at the joke. And look, sometimes people nailed that formula and made a few good ones, but this one, right. I think, the team behind it was really smart in terms of saying, no, there's a structure here that works that we can go back to. There's a sentimentality and an earnestness that if we put that foot out first, then we'll earn the jokes. And Jason Orley, who directed it, was very astute in terms of keeping that movie's feet on the ground and letting the emotion of that movie kind of be out in front. And then the jokes wind up, in my opinion, landing better because there's just an honesty to the story that I think started to go away in some of these romantic comedies. I think there's the pressure to be as funny as you can be, and I get it. You're making the other part of that word is comedy, right? So you're making a comedy. Right. You want people to laugh, but sometimes you cut off your nose to spite your face, or what? That's the expression, isn't it? Where you go so hard at the joke that by the time you want the emotion, the audience isn't there for it, which I get. It's a tough balance. You
seem grounded in how you approach things. It almost to a fault of it being just very, it's not necessarily, as the expression, chill to things. It's just more you roll with it. Where do you think you get that from?
It's funny that you say to a fault. Yeah, sometimes I think, right. There are people who,
because you're just like, oh, it's okay. You just go with it.
Well, I don't know, actually. Age. I think, I didn't break through when I was 18. I was young enough that, to have a career. But I think by the time we got Sunny on the air, I was 30, and it had been, from that first summer at Williamstown or whatever, I'd been going at it for quite some time. That's probably a part of it.
So you felt humbled in some ways, and it just kept you there grounded.
I think so. I think it's a Rhode Island thing. I just had good roots and my friendships there and family, and it's a place where being the fanciest isn't thought of well. I think
Right.
You know, it's like the kind of place you go back home and people are like, all right, get your feet on the ground, Charlie. You know, come on, down to earth here, guy. And I think that helps.
You do, by the way, you do that accent exceptionally well on the fly.
Well, yeah, I should be able to. Yeah, one of these days I'll make a Rhode Island movie, a good homage to there. I love that place.
Gotta hook you and the Farrelly brothers have to collaborate.
Yeah, I'd love to. In fact, I think they asked me to be in the movie Hall Pass, and they were filming it right in the middle of our Sunny production schedule. So I wasn't able to do, it was like a smaller part, but I wasn't able to do it. And then I don't think they've made a comedy since. I could be wrong, but maybe they made the Three Stooges thing. But, you know, now they
haven't. But I would think, you know, all of your New England roots could come up with something pretty. Look, here I am trying to pair you guys up.
Let's
do
it. And they golf. They talk about some golfers. Those guys are big golfers.
See, so maybe it's a golf, comedy movie.
Let's do it.
Which is that's my game.
Yeah. That's fun.
It's a comedy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'd be into that.
But for you in how you're looking at things, you have a podcast. I mean, you're on the path here. Yeah. But one of your big projects that you're doing right now, talk a little bit about your podcast, what your goal is with that. It could be exceptionally lucrative, which again, you look at it like you did with Sunny. Yeah. You're taking matters into your own hands.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think we sort of started to just do it on a whim, just for fun. And the response has been fantastic. I think it's been interesting in terms of the challenges where we suddenly realized, like anything else, if you have some success in it, you start to have to feed the beast, so to speak, which is to be like, we have to put one out every week. And we are three very busy guys with very different schedules. So coordinating that has been a challenge. Right now, Glenn just left to be shooting a movie in Toronto for 8 weeks. So we'll be using this application, I believe, to do a chunk of them. But like anything else, you know, it's just nice to have something that you're working towards and being creative about. And by the way, the three of us butt heads all the time and argue over stuff. And we work through those arguments and find a middle ground. But
your middle ground, by the way, for the three of you, seems to always produce really good product.
I know. Yeah, it's one of those lucky things.
It's astounding that way.
It's a lucky thing, I think. It's like just a chemistry thing where the three of us together have something that seems to resonate with people, and it's a slightly intangible thing, but we're grateful that it works. And then, oftentimes we say, well, we don't want to only be the three of us. We want to go do our own things. But, then we go off and we do our own things. And then I start to think, oh man, I really miss those guys. I wish they were here. Like if I'm working on something without them, I think, oh boy, if I had the two of them there, we could be having more fun with this. But look, that's just a lucky thing that we stumbled upon each other.
For you, when you're at this stage of your career and your agent sends over a script of a film, have you been shocked by any character now that you're getting that is not that, where like you described the beta male, but now all of a sudden you start getting some things that it kind of blows you away, that people want to invest in you because they know they're going to get that guy who's going to get in Scott Wolf's face.
That's funny. No. And I think most actors feel this way. I think a lot of actors feel like, boy, I wish I was getting more things like what you're describing. And they're far and few between, the phone might ring with things, but they're usually not probably the right thing for you to do. And you have to go be innovative and go put stuff together for yourself and find the people and find the ideas. And then every now and then you get lucky and Guillermo del Toro calls up and says, hey, will you do this movie called Pacific Rim? And you read it and you think, yes, of course I'll do it. Thank you for thinking of me. So I've been fortunate that that's happened a few times in my career, but honestly, not as much as I would like. I would, I wish I would get more calls like that.
You hang out at you're kind enough to host me playing golf, and I'm gonna force you to come down to San Diego to play with me.
We'll do it.
Okay, but you hang out at a club that's probably the best hang in golf for celebrities, meaning you could sit on a Friday afternoon if you're all off and you're playing golf, and it's a who's who in that room or sitting outside. Do you ever stop and think to yourself, this is amazing for me to be in an industry where, I'm friendly with all these different A-list actors and they actually view me the same way? Well,
yeah, it's hard to see it from the inside, But I had a moment with my wife where, this is not a golf thing, but where we went to some awards show for Licorice Pizza with Paul Thomas Anderson that she was in. She's sitting next to Paul and I'm next to her, and you're in a room with just the best of the best actors and filmmakers. And I had a nice moment of appreciation there, just saying, look, this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to make this kind of work, be around these sort of people. We find them inspiring because we are passionate about the same thing. I couldn't be doing that from Middletown. I'd have to be here I could fly out for the event, but it's been a real joy and a pleasure to get to work in an industry, and to rub elbows with these, like I bumped into Don Cheadle the other day at the course, and I just have, and Don Cheadle's kid Ty worked on Sonny as a PA, and just to sort of rub elbows with people who you really have admired for years and years and years is a very fortunate and wonderful thing, and it's not lost on me. I love every second of it.
What's next? And I know you got to go.
Well, what's next is right now I'm going around, and in fact I'm about to jump off this and get on a Zoom with a studio. I finished a movie that I wrote and directed, and I worked on it for many, many years, and I was about to take it out at the top of the pandemic, and things got slowed down, and then I had some creative decisions that I just wanted to change, and so I went and I changed a big chunk of this movie, and now I'm thrilled with it. And it's it's got this amazing cast. It's got Ken Jeong and John Malkovich and Kate Beckinsale and
wow.
Adrian Brody and Ray Liotta and Edie Falco, Common. I'm forgetting people. Jason Sudeikis, Bateman came and did a little thing on it. So it's a really fun movie, and I'm so happy with it. So right now I'm making the rounds and about to send it out to the studios to hopefully get the right home, and hopefully I'll get that movie out sometime this year. It's been a long time coming, and that's pretty much my focus. And then I think I'll start writing the next thing.
Well, Charlie Day, thank you so much for being on the path here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, and spending a little time with you is always fun.
I appreciate you, and let's play some golf.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to write us on thepathhere.com to have one of your questions featured on a future episode. You can follow me on Instagram @ScottSavlov. If you want to send us a tweet or follow us on Instagram, it's @thepathherepodcast. Hey, I'm Scott Savlov, and you've been listening to The Path Here.